Lamborghini owner is bragging that the Colorado State Patrol let him off with a warning for going 190 miles per hour. This is right as CSP is begging people to slow down after a weekend of deadly crashes. Now, we would chalk this bragging up to somebody just trying to be macho. But then our Steve Steger saw the ticket.
So I'm racking the car up, and cop pulls me over, and he goes, "You know how fast you're going?" And I go, 200. He goes, 190.
The driver, James Teague, cool hat bro, tells these fellow Lambros the trooper got distracted quickly.
He started asking questions about the cars, which is always a good sign. When they start asking questions about the cars, that means they're into cars, and you're less likely to get a ticket. And he says, "Okay, I wrote you a warning." He said, "This is the biggest warning I've ever written."
He shows off what he says is the warning ticket in a YouTube video.
And I said, that's the biggest warning I've ever gotten.
From CSP, an agency that bends over backwards to tell people to slow down, it was surprising. So we asked for the record, and sure enough, they sent us a copy of it.
190 and a 65 did not happen.
CSP spokesman Josh Lewis says they reached out to the trooper who told them a completely different story.
We had a motorist who requested essentially a memento from a trooper that he made contact with, not on any type of official traffic stop, simply looking for directions.
Lewis says CSP isn't cool with speeding and doesn't give out trophy tickets.
We have plenty of stickers, and occasionally you may even get a teddy bear, but ultimately something like this is the first I've ever heard of it.
When we reached out to Lambro James Teague today, he initially told us he was driving that fast. When we told him the trooper said something different, he said, quote, "We'll go with his story. You don't never go against local authorities."
As for the trooper, CSP says they are looking into a possible personnel action against the trooper. Couldn't go further than that, Kyle, because they say they do not discuss personnel matters.
This video exists in a whole online culture of exotic car owners who want to prove that police are okay with them speeding.
I got sucked into it a bit today. Yes, it appears that the folks who produce these videos want to show that the cops are cool with them going that speed. They brag about warnings that they've gotten from police. They talk about the officers being interested in the vehicles and therefore maybe letting things slide.
Okay, so let's suppose that we believe Mr. Teague, that he was going 190 miles per hour. What does CSP say should have happened?
Josh Lewis says you would be put in the back of his squad car, taken immediately to jail, because that is a reckless driving ticket.
I, for one, want to know who's telling the truth. All right, thank you, Steve. It's common for political groups to put hot-button stuff on the ballot just to encourage turnout, get people riled up. But the initiative that was rolled out by Republicans today is odd, because Democrats say what they're trying to change is actually already in the state constitution. A group called Colorado Citizen Voters turned in 200,000 signatures today for Initiative 76. That would change two words in the state constitution. Instead of reading "every citizen may vote," what it says now, it would say "only a citizen may vote." So Democrats think that, Republicans rather think that Democrats want to change the law. They want non-citizens to vote. We talked to a Democratic elections lawyer who said that even if Republicans wanted to change this, they're messing with the wrong part of the Constitution. Let's hear from both sides.
This simply clears up some ambiguous language and makes sure that we have the first steps to ensure that we have election integrity in the state of Colorado.
If they were really trying to change how elections are conducted throughout Colorado, they blew it. Theirs is an amendment to the state election part of the Constitution. There's a whole different provision that gives home rule municipalities total control over who gets registered to vote.
Can I actually just say that, just point of order, if the idea is just to get people riled up as opposed to make a change, then they didn't blow it. The initiative looks to be in good position to get on the ballot. They turned in far more signatures than they need. Secretary of State's office will now check to make sure that enough of those signatures are valid. So imagine staking your career on something that you thought was right. Imagine losing your job over it, only to find out that people are just ignoring the change that you sacrificed your career to make. That would be former Democratic State Senator John Morse. He was recalled for his support of gun control laws in 2013, including a ban on large-capacity magazines. Yet our Marshall Zellinger found they're still for sale 6 years later.
Colorado defines large capacity gun magazines as those that hold more than 15 rounds of ammunition.
I move House Bill 1224.
When Colorado passed the large capacity magazine ban in 2013,
and they're designed to come apart easily.
John Morse was the top Democrat in the Senate. He did not give a speech about the bill.
Mr. President, aye.
Just his yes vote.
House Bill 1224 is adopted.
His yes vote came 8 months after the Aurora Theater shooting, where the shooter used a 100-round magazine. He stopped firing the gun it was attached to when the magazine jammed.
We want bad guys to have to reload on a regular basis, because when they're reloading, it means that gun is a paperweight, and that's your opportunity to get away and or overpower that assailant.
6 months after his yes vote, Morse's constituents in El Paso County fired him.
He's not representing Colorado Springs well.
Voted him out of office in a special recall election. He lost by 319 votes.
We have to sell it as parts. That's what
We showed Morse our undercover video.
As soon as we remove the functionality of it and take the spring out, it's not a magazine.
I guarantee you that was not our intent. And if we did make that mistake, the legislature needs to go back and fix it forthwith, like call a special session and fix it.
He lost his job in part over a law with a loophole.
Yep.
Then we need to close that loophole. We need to slam that loophole shut. And if we catch some of their fingers in that slamming, that's the price of doing business.
One person's loophole is another person's legal activity.
Republican Senator Bob Gardner was a state representative in 2013 when he voted against the ban.
Don't kid yourselves, legislators. Just because you said so doesn't mean people do so. We have a lot of ineffective laws on the books, and I don't look for it to be repealed anytime soon, because those who passed it and the governor who signed it, as you showed in your story, are very proud that they did that.
We decided, that we were going to go out and take on the NRA, and we passed, as a purple state, we passed universal background checks. We limited magazine capacity.
Did you know these were still being sold in Colorado since the law was signed?
No, I didn't. I had not. I'm probably as surprised as you are. This is the point of good media, right? Good journalism is because when you point something like this out, it then becomes our responsibility to fix it.
If this really happens, I have no doubt that Governor Polis will lead the charge to do what needs to be done to fix. If in fact there's a loophole here, Governor Polis will lead the charge to get this fixed.
So what does Governor Jared Polis think about that statement? We reached out this evening to find out, and I keep refreshing my phone. I'm still waiting for a response. We also reached out to the governor's office a couple of weeks ago to get his thoughts on what we found in the undercover video. His office did not want to agree to an interview unless his staff could see the undercover video first, Kyle.
A lot of talk about the executive branch, a lot of talk about the legislature, and what about the courts? They have a role here?
Yeah, we're going to hear from the judiciary. Well, at least they're going to hear about this tomorrow. After 6 years of legal wranglings over whether or not this is constitutional or not, the state Supreme Court will hear tomorrow afternoon the arguments for and against the constitutionality of this law, period. And then we'll hear from the state Supreme Court whether or not the legislative branch, the lawmakers, should have even been able to pass this law in the first place.
So much fighting over a law that appears to have very little impact. All right, thank you, Marshall. Today, Republicans across the country are piling on former Governor John Hickenlooper for something that he said on Next last night. The Democratic Senate candidate claimed that it is the job of journalists like us to protect him from an ethics investigation.
You guys should be protecting me on stuff like this, where there's no clear. How could they meet? What's the confusion? That I had a private meeting? No, there were no private meetings. That I somehow saved money myself? I wasn't going to pay for that plane ticket. I saved the state money.
Yes, that's not how this works. So the only thing the journalists should be protecting is the truth. If the truth is on former Governor Hickenlooper's side in this ethics complaint, well, then he should rest easy. If it's not on his side, then he should be concerned. Saying that what journalists should be protecting is him, the man, the politician? Yeah, that's not how it's going to work around here. May I make a recommendation? This is where we point you toward great work that was done by a competitor. In this case, 2 media outlets that teamed up for a powerful investigation about the end of that man's life. The Colorado Independent worked with the Rio Blanco Herald-Times to expose the police shooting of Daniel Pierce. It happened in the small town of Rangeley. This is a landmark piece of journalism that lays out how the officer who pulled the trigger knew the man that he shot, had tried to help the man he ended up shooting. And it examines the silence that fell over that small town on the western slope following the shooting. Their story says the town leaders tried to block the small newspaper's reporting. so in came reinforcements from the Independent. Carve out some time, you'll need it, to read this epic two-part series. It is well worth your time. We have a link on the next Facebook page. Comcast is now answering questions from the State Attorney General's office about the Nuggets and Avs blackout on your television. The AG is investigating why Comcast customers are still being charged a regional sports fee when they can't watch Altitude due to the ongoing contract dispute. Comcast's official response to the AG justifies the partial fee continuing because they say customers can still watch the Pac-12 network and Sportsnet Rocky Mountain. So enjoy all those Rockies games this week. Oh, wait.
These CU Boulder researchers are the coldest.
It's been cold. Of course, it's dark. The sun went down a long time ago, and we haven't seen it for many weeks now.
They're studying the Arctic by getting intentionally stuck in the ice. Ralphie is going on ice, too. A day after CU Boulder told us she was fine, Ralphie's done. That's next.
What a beautiful day and a beautiful evening. Sunshine today, a 40-degree temperature jump over yesterday. Yesterday we were in the mid-20s, today mid-60s, above average, and of course there's another storm on the way, so temperatures will trend back the other way tomorrow. Still mid-40s out there at the airport. Winds are calm, but will be increasing, especially along the Front Range foothills, along with the high and mid-level cloud deck ahead of this weak system that will cross the state. It'll be 10 degrees cooler here with a few light snow showers in the northern mountains, but the clouds will come into Denver overnight and be gone by tomorrow. Partly cloudy, winds increasing along the foothills, are low above freezing. Sunny, mild temperatures tomorrow, a bit of wind west of town. Great weather heading into the weekend. 20% chance of a rain-snow mix late Saturday. 9 Cares Colorado shares in the morning. This is an evening event done by Sunday. Temperatures back to the 60s with sunshine early next week.
Thank you, Kathy. There's a new voice greeting you on the train at the airport. We know you're interested. This is one of those nerdy topics that we've been collectively obsessed with for the last couple of years. Take a listen.
Welcome to Denver. This is Purple Heart recipient, SB winner, and retired U.S. Air Force Senior Master Sergeant Israel Del Toro. With over 21 million veterans living in America, Veterans Day is an opportunity to honor the men and women who have selflessly dedicated themselves to protecting our country. Join me in showing our debt of gratitude.
I thought that you would be interested in hearing the story of Senior Master Sergeant Israel Del Toro. He was severely burned in an IED explosion in Afghanistan in 2005. He became the first fully disabled airman to ever be allowed to re-enlist in 2010. Del Toro served at the Air Force Academy in the Springs. He trained other cadets to jump and parachute. He's also a Paralympic athlete. Earlier this year, he retired from the Air Force. He lives in the Springs and works as a motivational speaker. His message of gratitude to vets will play at the airport for another 10 days. Yesterday, CU made it seem like Ralphie's absence from football games at Folsom Field was a temporary situation. Then today, CU announced the retirement of Ralphie 5. It seems that Ralphie has been getting a little ornery, not responding to cues from her handlers. Temperament, not ideal. They say otherwise she's in good health, but she does need to be a good listener. Ralphie turned 13 in October, been with CU since 2008, longer than all but one of her predecessors. Again, she's Ralphie 5. CU has not selected her replacement yet, but I'm guessing it will be a Buffalo.
Why would anyone want to live like this?
The wind chills lately have been getting to about minus 40. That's pretty tough to be outside.
Why do it? Science!
It's really been great to see this evolve from just an ice floe to now this kind of metropolis of science activity.
A sort of metro skate. Next.
Centuries ago, Arctic researchers would intentionally get their ships frozen into the sea ice. They were basically prisoners of the winter. They'd float in exploration of a Northwest Passage. A ton of them died doing it. It's long been a fascination of mine. I've bored the next team with a number of these stories. Arctic exploration nowadays, it's not as risky, but it's still an adventure. There are CU Boulder researchers who are frozen in the ice for the next year. We told you about the preparations for their trip on Next over the summer. They're designing sleds to use in their Arctic research. The guy in charge of the team, Matt Schuppe, has been out there since September. He can only communicate by radio phone, so our meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen gave him a call.
haven't seen it for many weeks now.
In the Arctic darkness near the North Pole, the winter ice flows are returning. With it come wind chills at -40 degrees. Despite dangerous conditions, a group of scientists from CU Boulder is living on the ice.
I think my body's starting to feel the lack of sunlight a little bit, but it's really so amazing up here that I think that it makes up for the lack of sunlight.
Matt Shoup is an atmospheric scientist who's joined a project to measure this remote part of the world.
Yeah, we basically found an ice flow that we think is a good ice flow that is going to last for the whole year.
These scientists parked their ship called the Polar Stern on the edge of an ice flow and let the ice freeze up around it. Then they built a runway, a helipad, and 4 science camps, all on this giant chunk of floating ice.
It's really been great to see this evolve from just an ice flow to now this kind of metropolis of science activity.
The goal is to measure the Arctic sea ice, the water below it, and the air above to uncover the relationships they have with each other and how that impacts the rest of the planet. Shoup leads the atmosphere team. One of the biggest challenges his team faces is keeping the weather sensors working in a harshly cold environment.
So this is a thing that we think about a lot. We've designed our systems to try to minimize the effect of that. We go out every day and try to clean our instruments and make sure that they're handling the conditions all right.
It's the biggest Arctic science project ever conducted. About 100 people live and work on this desolate and dangerous field of ice. The rule is for everyone to return to the ship and check in when the day's work is done.
Yeah, we just kind of made the decision early on that we would not have anybody out at remote camps overnight. And we're constantly thinking about the safety of people, both in operating in these extreme conditions. There's polar bears around, there are cracks in the ice.
The nights will get even darker over the next few months and the days 10 to 20 degrees colder. But the research will press on until the summer sun melts this science city back into the Arctic Ocean. Meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen for Next.
The CU Boulder researchers are there on the ice in shifts, so Matt will come home in December. Another member of his team will take his place. Your feedback on driving 190 miles per hour in Colorado. Next. Whole bunch of you want to talk about the CSP warning for a guy going 190 miles per hour. Al says, way to ruin it for all of us who felt like going 190 in our Lambos. Kathleen says, I'd like to know where in Colorado you can do 190. And Nick says, I-70 east of Byers, I-25 north of Foco, and I-25 south of Pueblo. We're not recommending that you do that. Don't do that. They might not give you a warning this time.